my fellow peers, and welcome back to my channel. Whether you're a new viewer or a returning subscriber, I gotta thank all of y'all for clicking on this video. It's greatly appreciated. Today, we'll be discussing Lesson 5 of the series, Growing Up, Answers Young Ones Need, in which we'll be answering the question, how can I do better at school? As we know, school has already started up, and sometimes it can be quite difficult to manage your time during school and also at the same time do better at school. So today we'll be discussing steps that you can take to not only feel more comfortable when you're at school, but ultimately do better in terms of your grades, but also understanding your lessons. Okay, so now I'll sit back and deliver the reason why you're still watching this video, which is how can you do better at school? Okay, so imagine this scenario. Imagine that you're trapped in a dense, dark jungle. Virtually all sunlight is blocked by the lush canopy overhead. Surrounded by thick vegetation, you can barely move. Therefore, to escape, you must cut your way through with a machete. Using this example, some would say that the experience of school is quite similar to the scene that we just described. After all, you're trapped all day in the classroom and hemmed in at night by hours and hours of homework that seem endless. Is that how you feel though? Well, down in the comment section below, comment which subject you find most challenging, as keeping that in mind will help us through this discussion as well. Well, perhaps your parents and teachers have urged you to put forth more effort in that particular subject that you found so challenging. If so, they're not trying to make your life difficult, so please don't think that. They just want you to reach your full potential and thus open up more opportunities for yourself as you grow older and get through school. So then, what can you do if the pressure to measure up makes you want to give up? Well, if you think about it, with the proper tools, you can clear a path through the jungle, as it were. In this case, go through school. So then, what are these tools? Well, let's go through those. Okay, so tool number 1 is a healthy attitude toward learning. It's hard to be motivated to do well in school if you have a negative view of learning. The same way that if you view something negative as negative, it's quite difficult to try and advance in it. Well, if we have a negative view towards learning or towards school in general, it becomes quite difficult to try and enjoy it, and because of that then becomes difficult for us to be good at it. So then, in this case, you should try to see the big picture, as it were. Well, seeing the value of plowing or working through certain subjects might not actually be easy. And why is that? Well, simply put, because not everything in your curriculum may seem relevant, at least not now. Still, an education in a variety of subjects will most definitely enrich your understanding of the world around you, and it will help you become all things to people of all sorts as well. And that thus gives you the ability to learn to talk to people of various backgrounds at least a little bit more comfortably and more confidently, because you're able to have a basic understanding of people's backgrounds. So at the very least, it will improve your thinking ability, which is a skill that will surely help you in the long run. Okay, so now tool number 2 is having a positive view of your own abilities. Believe it or not, school can reveal your hidden talents which are unique to you. And understanding this can help you to have a better view of school, because school, at the end of the day, can help you to discover and nurture abilities that you never even knew you had. So, don't set yourself up for disaster by thinking that you're simply not capable of improving. Imagine putting it this way: whenever you do get negative thoughts about your own abilities, try your best to replace those thoughts with positive things. So instead of saying, I can't do it, ask yourself, how can I do it? That way, you're putting forth the effort to try your best and be better at school. So then, now this brings us to these few questions. So what about you then? What are your strengths? Your weaknesses? And if you can't think of them, why not ask a supportive adult or a parent? Such a friend can definitely help you to identify your strengths and also to make the most of them, which is exactly what you want to do in this case. So now, tool number 3, good study habits. Okay, so this one might seem a bit obvious, but regardless, it's still incredibly relevant and incredibly important. There is no shortcut to success at school. Sooner or later, you're gonna have to study. Granted, that very word might actually have an unpleasant ring to it when you hear it. However, study is beneficial, not only now in the short term as you're in school, but also in the long term. As you grow older, it's beneficial for all things. In fact, if you put in a little effort, you might even find it enjoyable. Even though that does sound quite far-fetched, that can be true. And I know that from my own experience, that has come to pass as well. Because even though back when I was a little bit younger, I used to detest studying for maths especially, now that I'm older, I do realize that actually studying not only helped me understand math as a subject a lot better, but also got me the grades that I wanted, simply because I put the effort in to actually arrange my time and study at the appropriate time and when needed. Well, now you might ask, how do you even cultivate good study habits? Well, to cultivate good study habits though, you definitely need to organize your time. As I mentioned before, the fact that I put the effort into actually study meant that I had to have a specific time and place to study at every point in time. And that meant that I had to manage my time to a certain extent, or else I would never have enough time to study, enough hours, and that would cause me to get the grades that I didn't want. Well, remember this: while you're in school, study should definitely be a priority. Even though sometimes it might be quite annoying to set out time to sit down and study, it's important that you remember that you can study first and play second. Because once you get your studying out of the way, for starters, you won't have that weighing on the back of your mind, but also you'll enjoy playing a lot more because you won't have to worry about studying afterwards. And it just helps you feel a lot more calmer because you know you've done your part and you know that you're going to do your best. Whether it be a test or whether it be your homework, you've done your best, and that's all that matters. Because at the end of the day, you shouldn't worry because you'll always find time to do both. Well, now the section is help for your homework. Question is, what if you're actually simply swamped with loads of homework and you just feel like you can't handle so much work? Well, maybe you feel as did 17-year-old Sandrine, who said, I spend from 2 to 3 hours a night on my homework, plus the weekends. So how can you cope with this onslaught, as it were? Well, now I'll give you a few tips that you can take into account when struggling with such things. Tip number 1, find a study area. It should be free of distractions. Use a desk if possible and don't have the TV on. Tip number 2, set priorities. Since your schooling is important, resolve that you won't turn on the TV or play any games until your homework is done. Tip number 3, don't procrastinate. Okay, this might seem like quite hard to do, but it's quite simple if you have a definite schedule for your homework and you stick to it. As long as you stick to it, it becomes harder and harder for you to procrastinate because you'll have that routine in place. And as long as you keep that through, you'll be less likely to procrastinate. Tip number 4, have a plan. Decide which project you should tackle first, which one second, and so on. List these on paper and give each one a time limit. And then cross off each assignment as you complete it. That way, you know exactly what you're doing, but also gives you that sense of relief because you know that you're actually doing something and you can measure your progress by taking them off as you go along. Tip number 5, take breaks. This might be good for some people. If you find yourself losing focus, you should stop for a brief rest. Whether it be get some food or go on your phone for 15 minutes, it doesn't matter, just take a break. But remember to get back to your homework or your studies as soon as possible. That way you're less likely to procrastinate and get it done quicker. And step number 6, have confidence in yourself. Remember, the difference between a good student and a poor one usually has more to do with diligence than intelligence. Therefore, you can make a success of school. Put forth the effort and you will definitely reap the rewards as you go through school. So now getting to the end of this, let's just think back to the illustration that we discussed at the outset of this discussion. Trapped in a dense jungle, you would need the proper tool, a machete, to clear a path. The same is true with school. Rather than feel overwhelmed by the demands of your parents and teachers, use the 3 tools that we have talked about today to make a success of school and become more successful at managing your time as well. As your performance improves, you'll be glad that you put these things in place. And sooner or later, you'll start doing so much better at school and you'll feel much happier at it as well. So this brings us to the end of lesson 5 of the series, Growing Up, Answers Young Ones Need. And I really hope that you all found this information helpful. If you did, please comment down below any information that you found helpful and that you're going to use as you keep going with your life. Well, I really do hope that you're keeping well and you're doing well in these difficult times. And if you'd like me to go through any more things, please don't forget to comment down below for any suggestions, which I'll be glad to look over. Don't forget to like and subscribe because you know it's free. And I'll see y'all next Tuesday. Choco is out.